students that you're serving this year, you want to look at your indicators and where the way you mark them in your self-assessment and determine which one is one that would be a high priority for this year. That's what would get you focused on where you need to kind of push yourself this year. I would suggest from that self-assessment that you only look for two items. Sometimes people like to kind of look at it as, what is a professional growth thing? What is a professional development that I want to do? And what is something I want to work on personally? That is something I just know I need to work on. However you want to do it, the main thing that I would suggest to you is only two. Choose only two. And I notice I started off with the teachers. Those of you who are principals and assistant principals, some districts say vice principals, or I'll talk about them for a minute. Those of you who are leaders of schools, you want to look at where you are as a leader, because our indicators are different from the teacher indicators. Once we do that, principals and assistant principals, you want to say to yourself as a leader, where is an area that I really need to focus on this year? I know my school, I know where we are at my school, I know the school I serve, I know the community I serve. What is an area that would be highly impactful for everything that's going on with COVID, everything that's going on with virtual learning? What would be an area that you would need to focus on that would impact that would positively impact students? It should be a ripple effect. And then people that are out there from central office, what you're wanting to look at is your district as a whole, where you are professionally. And when you look at your district as a whole, what would be the indicators that you would need to focus on that would highly impact the leaders of your schools in your district, that would highly impact the teachers, that would highly impact the students. So there you can see how it's a ripple effect to where everyone is positively impacted. That's where you start off with your self-assessment. So remember, look for two, just two. I highly, 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 highly suggest only two. And the reason why is because we're educators and we're very busy. And when you select 5 or 6 items from your self-assessment, it's just too much. I mean, I know we're conquerors and we can do it all and we are victorious, that's great. However, 2 is reasonable. We want to be realistic for ourselves and what we can focus on within a school year. Because you should be able to kind of remember what are the things you want to work on this year. That's the self-assessment. Remember, only 2. To choose 2 areas from your pre-service and beginning and your emerging indicators, just 2. And then what you do with those 2 is you start writing a professional learning plan. What I want to do with the professional learning plan and what I want to share with you today, I want to start off with a position that most people in your schools don't have, and that's physical education. I thought that would be a good one to start with because a lot of times those are the people out there saying, I can't find anything that fits me. This is what I always say to my teachers that I want to give to the principals and assistant principals out there. Don't ever say you can't find it here. It's there. What you have to do is say, this is what I know I want to work on. Don't even look right now at the indicators. You know what you need to work on based off of your self-assessment. Now what you do, you find an indicator that best fits what you want to work on. The mistake I've seen people do is they look through the indicators up and down. They're looking for something exactly like what they're looking for, and that might not be there. You kind of have to say, this is what I want to work on, and it'll kind of fit with this particular indicator is the best way to do that. In the sample that I have in front of you, this is a PE teacher that just moved to the state of Alabama, never done this platform before, and I was able to give some guidance to show him how to complete it and how to make it useful to highly impact himself and positively impact our students. If you look at what's on the screen now, the first thing that is on the screen is his learning goal. You have to stop and ask yourself, principals, assistant principals, central office teachers, whichever one you are, you have to say, what do you want to learn? That might not be a big deal to you. The mistake I've seen with this cell on the platform is I've seen educators, teachers just write and then write some more and some more. It's such great writing, and I don't see anywhere in there what type of goal that person has for this year. Therefore, I had to decide, how can I help to get us more focused, because I had great writers in the building. I give sentence starters. So all of my teachers start off saying, I want to learn. If you use that as a sentence starter, it will force you to keep it focused on what is it that you're trying to learn this year that's going to affect you positively as well as your students. I want to learn is what I have them use. Notice a PE teacher here. I love this one because at the point where my teachers are, they come to me with this already done, and then we discuss it together. We weren't always there. You're getting me after I've learned a lot and able to share it with you, so you can just go there and get there right away, whereas it took me years to get to this point. If you look at the goal here, he planned to actually take what's done in the gym and connect it to the Alabama state standards. That's what that was his goal, to figure out, how do you do that? How does a PE teacher take what they're doing in there and connect it with math and science and social studies and English language arts? How do you do that? Well, that's what he wanted to learn to do. Well, obviously you're going to grow in learning to do that, and that's going to positively impact students and help him to grow as an educator and as a professional. If you look at the next line, it has to do with implementation. And this is what I always say to my staff for that one. I always say, what are you going to do? Great. If you go learn what you said you want to learn, what are you going to actually do with that piece of information that you just learned? And that works for the principals also and people at central office. And if you look here, he tells you, this is how I've kind of thought about it, and this is how I'm going to actually implement what I learned. I'm going to actually collaborate with teachers. I'm going to actually familiarize myself with those standards and come up with new ways to incorporate those standards into the skills that the children are learning in the gym. Great, I love it. Then the question becomes, this is what I say. This is as simple as it gets. I say to my staff, so what? If you learn that and you do what you said you were going to do, what kind of difference is that going to make for anybody involved? And there you see an example of what he said there. He thought that his students would have a better understanding of the skills that he's teaching. It's kind of like a win-win he's wording here. And also they would have a better understanding of the Alabama state standards, is what he's saying. That's a pretty strong impact on our students, so that they don't feel that learning is in isolation. And if you look at the last cell that I have there, or that is on this platform, it's evidence. What will we be able to see? What will be obvious to the eye? That you've learned what you said you were going to learn, you've done what you said you were going to do, and it's had a massive impact on you and the students. What would anybody be able to see? And what you see there, he's telling you about the student assessments, and he's really feeling like, well, what you should be able to see is how awesome these children are doing on assessments, because they're actually learning these skills in different environments, and he's supporting what's being learned in the classroom. That's an example of how all this can flow and how all this can work. And that was actually indicator 1.3, content knowledge is what you call that one. The second one I'm going to show you is Dr. Hope Prim's. And in the one that I'm going to show you is the indicator entitled Teaching and Learning. And I chose this one because in the one that she wrote, she's talking about formative assessments, and that is all of us from pre-K up through 12th grade, about us adjusting our instruction based on what we see from our children. However, I'm not going to talk much about hers. I'm going to let her tell you her why and what she chose, because I wanted her to be able to share and give you what she did and why she did what she did with her professional learning plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hope Prim.
Good afternoon. I apologize for that. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Hope Prim. I have been teaching with the Madison County School System for 20 years. I currently teach first grade. So after much self-reflection, I chose indicator 2.8 for two specific reasons. I wanted to ensure that my students were reaching all of their learning targets, and I wanted to grow professionally by collaborating with my first grade colleagues, members, to basically improve my abilities of using formative assessments. So learning goal 2.8, what I chose as my goal, it states that I want to learn how to improve my abilities of using formative assessments to provide specific and timely feedback to my students for meeting their learning targets and understanding how to adjust instruction. So after I chose my goals, I then had to think about how was I going to implement those goals. So I stated that I would use weekly professional learning collaboration time to basically engage in meaningful discussions. And also, because my school is a professional learning community, I was able to perform action research with my colleagues to attain and achieve better results for my students. So after implementing the learning goal, you have to think about, so what type of impact do I want this to have on our students, my first grade students, all of the first grade students in the building at Hayes Green Elementary. So I stated that I will anticipate that my students will make successful gains in all subject areas and on the doubles reading and a cadence math assessment. So now I've already completed the first 3 steps. The final step is, what type of evidence do I want to see or want to happen after everything has been implemented? So I stated in my goal, I stated that I would expect that students' achievement will increase through the use of adjusting my instruction and analyzing the results of the formative assessments. So basically, when you're choosing your indicators, you have to be purposeful, you have to be intentional, you have to think about how are you going to help your students, how are you going to help them achieve mastery in all of their skills. And also you have to, on a personal aspect of it, you have to do a self-reflection. Think about how it will grow you personally. And as a veteran teacher, you should always, strive to think about ways to improve your instruction for the purpose of ensuring that your students are mastering all learning targets. Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Dr. Freedom. And when you look on the screen now, that was the professional learning plan. What happens after the plan has been agreed upon between the teacher and the assistant principal, or the teacher and the principal, or the principal and central office, whichever it may be in your case, depending on your role?